And we are live. Welcome to another episode, everybody, of the Chase with Jace. I'm your host, Jace Lejeune. And boy, we got a lot to talk about today on the show. A lot of good stuff to talk today, and a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today when we talk about those LSU fighting Tigers. And we're going to finally get to see you after a whole week of talking about coaching changes and who's going to be the AD, who's going to be the next head coach, and all of that talk. Well, we can finally get to put it a little bit of that. There's still the head coaching issue we want to talk about today, but there is some stuff we can talk about in terms of an actual game. There is a game being played this week, and it's been crazy knowing with all the storylines and everything that's been going on that it's actually Alabama week this week. So it's just been crazy with the last couple of weeks and how they transpired. But we're getting more and more people coming on the show. So make sure before we start our LSU chat today, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, wherever you're watching us. You can be you're watching us on YouTube. You can be watching us on Facebook. You can watch us on X, whatever you're watching us today. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, make sure to share it out, and then on the show today, make sure we want you to get involved. So we want you to talk about any questions that you have about the LSU Tigers. Could be about the coaching changes. Could be about the game this week. Basically, my question for you, if you want to put it in the comment section, what's your score prediction for LSU Alabama this Saturday? What's going to be your score prediction? Do you think LSU is going to magically win this football game when a new interim head football coach, maybe a juice of energy, a rejuvenated team? Is it going to be Alabama? Alabama's going to cruise again. Is it going to be a close game? I kind of want your thoughts. So make sure to comment in the comment section. Give us your LSU score prediction for this Saturday. And we definitely had some news over the last week. It hasn't been that much surprising, where this week it was going to be announced that a new president at LSU was going to be announced. It was also going to be announced the athletic director. That was going to be something that was going to be reported as well. So those two things go into the week. We thought that there would be an announcement going on about who exactly going to be the head coach and the athletic director. Well, looks like that part of it, a word that's going to be used a whole lot when you talk about LSU, is alignment. You notice that whenever Brian Kelly took the head coaching job at LSU, you notice that alignment was going to be a word that's brought up. Scott Willard brought that word up, and it's true. When you have alignment, it makes things a little bit easier. So you're looking for a head football coach, and you're competing with a lot of college football programs really across the country. You go look at not only LSU, but you're looking at Penn State. I mean, you're looking at Arkansas. You're looking at Florida. You're looking at Virginia Tech. You're looking at Auburn. Auburn just fired their head football coach, and it helps when you are in the conversation, when you want to be in the conversation for being the head coach at LSU. I think it would be nice knowing who you report to, right? It's nice to know who you're reporting to. Or you're reporting to your who's the AD? Who's the AD I'm talking to, right? And who's the president I'm reporting to? Those are things that you want to be resolved, right? And it looks like that for the most part, LSU has done that part of it this week. Wade Rouse was announced as LSU's 29th president earlier this week, and he was recently the president of McNeese State University. So he will be the president now at LSU. You're also bringing in as well Dr. Jim Dalton, who is going to be the chancellor at LSU. So to kind of talk about the difference there, Jim Dalton is going to be basically running the Baton Rouge, the LSU university, while you look at Rouse, he's going to run the LSU system, right? So that was the first thing. Find a president, get that stoned away, and they did. And then the second thing is, okay, your athletic director. And a lot of people were kind of leaning towards who this was going to be. But Verge Osbury, he's been announced. He's been with LSU for over 30 years. There's not a guy out there that can relate to LSU athletics and knows what LSU athletics is all about than a guy like Verge Osbury, because he played at LSU. He knows exactly what it's like. And he is the athletic director. He was the interim athletic director for I wouldn't even say a second. As soon as they said that he was the interim athletic director, I believe on Friday, he just got promoted to the full-time athletic director, which means now you know who's going to be making the decision on the head football coach at LSU, and that is Verge Osbury. So Verge Osbury will be the athletic director that'll be leading the charge when it comes to who is going to be the next head football coach at Louisiana State University. So that's squared away, and it looks like you're starting to settle down. Remember, last week was a lot of chaos in terms of a lot of things, like who's going to run this coaching search, right? Is it going to be, the president coming up? Who's the athletic director coming up? Is the governor of Louisiana? He got involved as well. But it was crazy that you looked at maybe 2 Saturdays ago. You had Scott Woodward as your athletic director, and you had Brian Kelly as your head coach. Now we're going towards Alabama week, and you have Verge Osbury as your athletic director and Frank Wilson as your head football coach. So crazy times at LSU, that's for certain. So we're going to talk a lot about the Alabama game as well. And we'll also, we talked about last week on the last week's show, obviously, but about the LSU head coaching search and who LSU should be get after. And then that's another thing. So if you want to get involved, we want this show to be something where the fans can get involved. So if you have a comment, if you have a general question, basically 2 questions today, and you can actually comment below if you want to get involved. And that is 2 questions you want to answer. Number 1, who is your choice to be the LSU head football coach? We want your thoughts and comments on that. So if it's up to you, if you're making the decisions, who would the LSU head football coach be if it were up to you? And then also we have a game on Saturday. It's been a bye this past week. It seems like it's been forever since LSU got handed to them in that game against Texas A&M at home in Tiger Stadium. How will this team respond? We want your comments. We want your score predictions on LSU Alabama this week. So let's talk about Frank Wilson. Frank Wilson is the interim head coach at LSU, and it's going to be interesting times. And in fact, Frank Wilson, I don't think he's out of the running. He is the interim head football coach at LSU, but depending on how the season ends, he very well could put his hat in the ring. You never know. In fact, remember the last time LSU, two times ago, really, that LSU was in a position like this, right? They ended up going and promoting Ed Orgeron, because Ed Orgeron, I think he ended the season, I think it was like 6-2, I believe, when he took it over to be the full-time head coach in 2017. Remember, they fired Les Miles early in the year. Ed Orgeron righted the ship, had a great rest of that 2016 season, and that allowed them to get that head coaching job in 2017. This could be similar here. We're talking about Brian Kelly and with Frank Wilson. They fired Brian Kelly at the beginning of the season, mid to middle of the season. And then you have Frank Wilson now. Let's just say Frank Wilson, if he can go 4-0, he definitely has a great shot. Maybe even 3-1. If they, let's say it's a competitive game against Alabama, they lose by, let's say, a field goal, and he goes and LSU looks good the rest of the way. They win their final 3 games. They win the bowl game. The team feels good about Frank. You never know. Frank Wilson could be in that conversation as the head coach at LSU. But step 1 is a big step. It is quite a time for LSU, for Frank Wilson to take on being the head coach at LSU. Guess what's your assignment? Your first assignment as head football coach at LSU, you're going to have to go on the road. You have to go to play in Tuscaloosa. You have to go play against the Alabama Crimson Tide. So that is a tall task for your first job, right? Your first assignment as a head football coach at LSU is you have to go on the road and play the Alabama Crimson Tide. So it's been quite a whirlwind the last couple of weeks when we haven't really talked much about this being Bama week because of everything that's been going on, not only at LSU but just around college football, with all the firings that have been going on. Because Auburn just, I mean, they put their name in the hat, they put their name in the ring for trying to get a new head football coach. So it's been pretty crazy couple of weeks, but in my opinion, when talks about how LSU will look this week, I mean, obviously y'all have a article on our website, gridironfootballusa.com, about that in my game prediction and all that. So I won't give away a final score or anything. But what I will say is that Frank Wilson will have this team ready to play. I really, truly believe that. And sometimes you never know how those things can go, right? You don't know if it's going to be a positive thing, that a new change of scenery, right? You get a new offensive coordinator as well. Alex Atkins is going to be calling plays now. You got Frank Wilson, a new face, a new voice to listen to if you're LSU. That makes things interesting. It's a team rejuvenated because of that, because of a different voice, a different person leading the way. And we're going to find out. I truly believe Frank Wilson is going to get these guys to really buy in. I'm going to expect a fired up, motivated LSU team for a couple different reasons. They've had to listen to all this head coaching stuff, the firing, how the season's going down the drain. What a lot of people have said about this LSU football team. They want to hear all about the coaching stuff as well. And then, yeah, I mean, if you're Alabama, I think this type of team, right, in LSU, this is a type of team that you have to be careful about. And I'm sure Kalen DeBoer is telling Alabama this, but this is a dangerous team when you talk about a team like LSU, because you're coming to a situation, you're Alabama, you're number 4 in the country, you're rolling, everybody's talking positive about you, as what Nick Saban said, right? The rat poison. That was the biggest thing, right? The rat poison's always been a thing with Nick Saban at Alabama. Well, you want to take positives, right? It can only be good or bad, and depending on how you use it, right? And there's gonna be a lot of positive talk on the outside noise about how Alabama's a better team. They got Ty Simpson, who's a Heisman candidate right now at the quarterback position. You're looking at a college football playoff type of team. A lot of people are saying that Alabama can win the national championship when it's all said and done. But you're at home and from your fans. LSU, well, their season's out the window. They've already lost 3 games. They fired their head football coach. You got an interim coach. So there are a lot of outside noise for Alabama that's telling them that, hey, you should be able to sleepwalk and win this football game against LSU. But I think that makes this dangerous, right? Because LSU still has enough talent. They still have enough pieces on their football team that if you get them at a bad spot, and if you're overlooking LSU is still a type of team that can bite you and beat you. And you have to be careful of that if you are Alabama, if you are Kalen DeBoer. And he's had games like that. I mean, Kalen DeBoer have been really great at Alabama in playing ranked teams, but sometimes it's been the teams that they've overlooked that's really given them problems. You looking through 2 years, right? You only got about a 1.5 year sample size on Kalen DeBoer, but look at some of the teams that they've lost to, right? They've lost to Oklahoma when Oklahoma had really nothing to play for, and they got blew out by Oklahoma on the road. You look at this year, Florida State. They lose against Florida State to open the season, and you're seeing how Alabama's looked since that Florida State loss, and you've seen what Florida State has looked like since they won that football game, and has looked like a bad loss for Alabama. So that's another thing to look at as well. But LSU's a dangerous team. They still have a lot of great athletes. and there's a reason, right? Where Brian Kelly said that this was the best roster on paper that he's had at LSU. And you still have some pieces. You still got a good defense. You still got some dangerous weapons. Came on the board, talked about, I believe, in his presser earlier this week about how dangerous LSU's offensive weapons are on that side of the football and how dangerous they can be with the football in their hands. And I think that's going to present a challenge, right? Alabama's defense isn't like the stone wall rushing defense we've seen from some of those Nick Saban teams. So LSU, they might have a chance to that if they believe they can compete in this football game and they can run the football and they can make it really competitive, then they can make things interesting, right, in this football game. And I truly believe with Frank Wilson, he's a running back coach. You got Alex Atkins, who is the running game coordinator. That's going to tell me one thing, right? They're going to plan on running the football, and why not? I mean, you saw the Texas A&M game. One of the biggest positives from that football game is that they're going to be able to use a guy like Harlan Berry, right? Harlan Berry had a breakout game. And every time he touched the ball in that first half, he was one of the reasons why LSU was winning that game against Texas A&M before things got haywire, right, in the second half. He averaged about 7 yards per touch every time he touched the ball. He scored a touchdown, and he just didn't get the ball in the second half. Now, part of it, that game just went away from LSU in a matter of a couple of seconds, right? The touchdown, the 3-and-out, and then the punt return for a touchdown, and then it just went Texas A&M's way the rest of the way. But you have some weapons to work with. Harlan Berry, I think, showed some signs, showed some promise last week. And then you look at the other side of things too. Trey Green. Trey Green has been one of the positives as well for LSU. He has scored a touchdown in the last 3 games for LSU. So you'll be able to line them all over the football field, make things difficult for their defense. And if you're LSU's defense, the question mark is Whit Weeks again. Whit Weeks, I believe he is doubtful to play on Saturday, and then which is tough because you've seen how much more of a difference Whit Weeks has made to this defense with him in the lineup than you've seen without him in the lineup. So it's just better to have him inside the lineup, and because he's the heart and soul of this defense. I mean, you can't really be effective without a guy like that, right? And it's shown. I mean, it's shown you can run right at LSU the last couple of games. The running quarterback's been a big issue. It's always been a big issue the last couple of years. But I still think that this is going to be a more prepared, more motivated, and we've seen how a lot of times that having an interim coach, that is not always going to guarantee you wins and success, but I think it's going to give you an energized focus, re-energized look on this team, and I think this team is going to be dangerous not only on Saturday but the rest of the way. I mean, you have 5 opportunities to prove it, right? You have Alabama this Saturday, then it's going to also be tricky depending on how this game looks. You got next Saturday at like 11:45 kickoff against Arkansas next week, and then you have 2 more games after that against Western Kentucky and against Oklahoma. And could they spoil Oklahoma's playoff shot? I mean, very well could be at that final game of the regular season. So if you're LSU, you got something to prove. Show why you've been highly regarded at the beginning of the season before it really all fell apart with the Ole Miss game. But just kind of looking at Alabama this year, they've averaged, 410 yards per game offensively, 291 through the air. That's 15th in the country. What this Alabama team does really well is that they throw the football really well despite not having the best running game that they've really ever had. But it comes to show you Ty Simpson has played pretty much as good at the quarterback position as anybody in the country. I mean, right now, if you have to say who's the hottest quarterbacks in the country, you probably have to say Fernando Mendoza at Indiana, and you probably have to say Ty Simpson for Alabama. I mean, right now. I mean, there's other ones that are having great seasons like Haynes King from Georgia Tech, but there's not really a quarterback playing as hot right now as Ty Simpson, and he has been on the roll, 410 yards per game passing. Running the ball, they haven't been great running the ball. We talk about LSU not being able to run the football that well this year, but it doesn't really. We haven't talked about that much with Alabama because they have been able to make up for it. Like them not running the football and them not running the football at an efficient level is not preventing their offense from not being good. Obviously, a lack of a rushing attack for LSU has hurt the passing game too for LSU. But for Alabama, we haven't talked about as much because it hasn't hurt or hasn't affected their passing game. Their passing game is still playing at a high level, ranked top 20 in the country in passing this year. They've also averaged 34 points per game this year. Defensively, they are top 25 in yards per game, 312 yards per game. Defensively, 163 yards through the air. They've actually been really stellar against the pass game this year. Their pass defense has been really good, 163 yards per game, which could really affect Garrett Nussmeier and the receivers on Saturday. Rushing the ball, they've been vulnerable, so that's going to be interesting to watch. Well, how successful LSU will be in the ground game. And the thing I'm going to be looking forward to the most, I mean, as far as an injury report, we talk about LSU. There are two major ones on the injury report. When we talk about LSU, I talked about one of them. That was Whit Weeks. I talked about how vital he is to LSU's defense and what they need him to do for LSU's defense. Really, the other one is on offense, and it's Carius Kern. Why this is such a big injury for LSU is because right now, Tyree Adams, who is your left tackle like all season long, he's out. I mean, he's out right now. And you have to rely on Carius Kern. You have to rely on Carius Kern right now, and he's questionable. Now, Frank Wilson did say we won't hear more about what he has to say about this on Thursday, but there are some good signs for him to be maybe active, be in the lineup on Saturday. So it's trending in the right direction. He's still listed as questionable. So we're going to see how that goes. But you need Carius Kern because you don't have a guy like Tyree Adams out there at left tackle, and you need to have somebody like him at left tackle. What if Carius Kern is not available? What do you do? Well, you might have to put a guy like DJ Chester in a left tackle because you don't really have many options at that point. Good evening, Miss Melissa. Hope you're doing well on this fine Wednesday afternoon. I hope you're doing great. And we were talking some LSU football for the next, we'll be talking some LSU football until about 6 o'clock today. So if you have any questions, and guys, appreciate your comments. Make sure to comment if you have any questions. Any just general statements. Basically, I provide two questions for today's show, and feel free to, if you're chiming in, if you're listening, to chime in, right? My first question, again, for you guys is your score prediction. What do you think the score is going to be for LSU against Alabama this Saturday? Drop your score predictions. Is it going to be Alabama is going to be a blowout win for Alabama? As they're rolling right now, they're at home, they're finding their groove right now. They're in the college football playoff discussion. LSU, it's 180, right? 3 losses. You fired your coach. You got an interim coach. You're on the road. So, how will LSU respond to that? Drop your score predictions. Will LSU even win this game? Will they surprise people and upset Alabama? You just never know with LSU. But just drop your score predictions. And also, my second question for the fans tonight, we're going to talk about as we wrap up the show, but continue our conversation of who you want as LSU's next head football coach, as LSU has announced finally their president, their chancellor, and athletic director, so they can start kind of getting the ball moving on the head coach. But drop your comments, drop your questions. But those are my questions out to the fans tonight. Hopefully we get y'all involved and see if y'all can get in response to some of the comments from the fans as we go through the next around 35 minutes of the show today. But yeah, Alabama's defense kind of a bend but don't break, right? 18 points per game this year. That's ranked top 20th, around 20th in the entire country. So that's kind of a look at Alabama. So you're looking at Alabama from an overall standpoint. We know what their passing game has been able to do. There's not a lot of passing games as good as Alabama right now. They're also really good on third down. They're ranked 18th in the country in third down percentage, 49.6% of the time they convert their third down conversions. They're also top 10, and that's why they've won football games. This is a winning stat. They're a top 10 in the FBS with a +9 turnover margin, which means they do a great job of protecting the football and they do a great job of forcing turnovers. And when you do that, that is a winning margin. I mean, when you talk about the SEC, there's not a lot of separation from the best SEC team to about the 9th or 10th SEC best team. But the small things are the ones like the turnover ratio, third downs, those stats. They'll tell the whole tale, right? They'll tell you how good you are as a football team and how you win these football games. And Alabama's been great in the Reds in third down, and they've been great in turning the football over and forcing turnovers. Melissa Ward says 17-31 Alabama, play hard Tigers. So that's Melissa Ward's prediction. 31-17 Alabama with a win over LSU. So, yeah, that's a good comment there, Melissa. I truly believe now LSU can lose this game by 30, but I tell you what, I think LSU is going to be motivated and ready to go. And sometimes you just need new scenery, right? And with Frank Wilson coming in, I think Frank Wilson was the best choice in this situation right now to right the ship. He's had experience doing this before. If y'all don't know, Frank Wilson was on Tennessee's staff for 1 year. And if you remember, okay, why did I bring this up? That was the year Lane Kiffin was the head coach of Tennessee. And that was the year where he left for USC. And the interim head football coach for Tennessee was Frank Wilson. So Frank Wilson, this isn't his first rodeo. He's not inexperienced, and a good reason why they gave him the head coaching job in this situation is because he has head coaching experience. You know, he's at interim at Tennessee, but also he was a head football coach at UTSA. He was head football coach at McNeese State. So he's got head coaching experience. He's been a guy at LSU that's seen it all. He's been with Les Miles. He's been with Ed Orgeron. So he's had a lot of experience. He's recruited a lot of great players to Louisiana. You know, the Honey Badgers, right, of the world, the Leonard Fournettes of the world. A lot of it had to do with Frank Wilson bringing them over here to LSU. He was a big reason why they went to LSU because of Frank Wilson. But he's going to get them ready to play. Now, what is it exactly going to look like on the scoreboard? I can't really tell you. That's why I want to tune in and find out on Saturday. But what I can tell you is that I think LSU will be prepared. I think they'll be ready to go. And I think they're going to give Alabama their biggest punch that they have. So we'll find out what that means on the scoreboard at the end of the day when we talk about this game. But I truly believe LSU is going to try their best and give Alabama the best shot. I think this will be a great telling to see how motivated this team is going to be. And to be honest with you, how they look against Alabama is going to tell how serious Frank Wilson is in the conversation moving forward. Because if they play inspired, and if they play, like they're ready to go, then they're going to have a chance, right? He's going to have a chance to be the head coach at LSU. If let's say they lose to Alabama by 3 points on the road, and like I mentioned, they win the rest of their games out, then he's going to have he's going to have his name in the conversation. If they lose Alabama and they win every game, they win the 3 regular season games and they win the bowl game, I think he's got a good at least a good argument, for why he should be in the running. Is Hill the running back for Alabama? I believe so. Well, you have Hill and you have Jam Miller, but I know Jam Miller's been having some injury problems this year. I know he's back. I think it's Jam Miller. I'm about to go check. But I believe he is going to be the running back. Let's see, Jam Miller, and you have and Hill's a big back. Hill is like 250 pounds. Daniel Hill at Alabama. So I feel like you're going to get those two guys rotating a whole lot. That's basically when I've seen Alabama games. Those have been really the two backs. They really use a whole lot with those two. But running the ball, Melissa, they haven't been great running the ball. You look at it, and it just shows you how good their passing game is because they haven't really had a lot of balance. Jam Miller is their leading rusher this year, 308 yards on 80 carries, 2 touchdowns for Alabama. But you look at their rushing offense, they are 114th in the country in rushing. And you look at LSU right now, I mean, they're not going to be good either. But they're 114th at 118 yards per game. And then LSU, let's see where they're at. They are 106 yards rushing. They are 124th. So both these two teams have not been good running the ball. We're talking about 114th in the country for Alabama. We're talking about 124th for LSU. The difference here, we obviously going to look at the win-loss column, but Alabama has been able to overcome that. They've found creative ways to overcome their lack of a running game. LSU, on the other hand, has not been able to overcome that, and that's why you don't have a head coach right now, and that's why you don't have an offensive coordinator right now, because you haven't been able to overcome that. And Alabama has been able to show that they have been able to overcome that. But a lot of credit goes to Ty Simpson. If I had to cast my Heisman Trophy vote right now, I mean, you still got a lot of games to play. There's still a whole lot to play this season, but I would have to give it to Ty Simpson. Because if you take Ty Simpson off that Alabama football team right now, who knows what they're going to be? They do have a really talented receiving core as well. I've been impressed with Jeremy Bernard. Ryan Williams is as good as it gets, but I've actually been more impressed with Jeremy Bernard this year. I thought he's been more consistent as a wide receiver, making plays, stretching the field out for Alabama. He's been a weapon for the Crimson Tide. I think Jeremy Bernard is the guy that really scares me if I'm LSU's defense. And to be honest with you, I think it's a good matchup for LSU. I mean, you look at it, their strength of their team is their passing game. What is the strength of LSU's defense? It's their pass defense. So it's good on good. Who wins out there? And can LSU's rush defense step up against Alabama's rushing offense? I mean, those are going to be some keys when we talk about that game. Melissa, with November being the month to shine, how does our injury list look? Are we getting players back? It's not like there's a lot of injuries, Melissa. But there are impactful injuries. I think that's what that is for LSU. You look at, I think there's only really 2 big names on the injury report for LSU. Now they're pretty big in terms of impactful for this team. There's one offense and there's one defense. We talked about on the show a couple of times. But defensively, it's still Whit Weeks. Whit Weeks is doubtful. Hearing what Frank Wilson had to say about Weeks, it looks like it's not great for Weeks to come back, and which is a shame because Whit Weeks, I don't think there's a more impactful player or more valuable player to a defense than what Whit Weeks is showing at LSU, because you've seen with Weeks in the lineup that they are different, right? He was in there even when they lost to Ole Miss, the defense was still playing at a high level, right? But you don't have them for the Vanderbilt game. And look at how LSU's performed in the last 3 games, right? You are 1-2 in your last 3 games, and that was without Weeks in the lineup. You've lost to Vanderbilt, you lost to Texas A&M. That is a big loss for this LSU defense to not have him out there, because just his energy, how he gets everybody better. His leadership, all that is, and just how he plays the game of football. That is obviously missed when we talk about with Weeks, right? So yeah, that's a tough loss, tough pill to swallow. We not have him out there, so they're still going to wait till the rest of the week and see how that goes. I mean, today is Wednesday, November 5th, but when you're kind of this late in the week, when we're approaching Thursday, it's not looking great in terms of Weeks and trying to get him back. So we'll see how that goes. Offensively, the other injury I'm talking about, Melissa, is Carius Kern. So Carius Kern is your left tackle, which is an obviously big position to fill right there for LSU. But the question is, now the good thing is about Kern is that unlike Weeks, it looks like that injury is pointing up. Looks like there's some positive signs right there for him to come back. And he did have basically the week to heal, the bye week to heal. And you need him, right? Because look what your situation is, a left tackle right now. Your left tackle situation, you have Tyree Adams, who is out. Well, Tyree was actually been pretty solid for you, especially in pass protection. But he is not out there. So he's out. And then you got Kern, who's his backup. You're without him, potentially, what do you want to do? So do you put DJ Chester? You put him at left tackle? What do you do there? Do you move Weston Davis to left tackle from right tackle to left tackle? What do you do there? So that's going to be another question that LSU is going to have to answer. Is going to have to answer to find a way to figure out that position. So you don't have a lot of injuries right now if you are LSU, but what you do have is some key players potentially being out. So with November coming up, you're actually in a pretty decent spot in terms of injuries. But hey, I mean, the ones you have out there that are injured, those are some pretty big names. All right, appreciate the questions, Melissa. If anybody else has any questions about LSU football, feel free to chime in. I know Melissa has done that. If anybody else wants to chime in, have a question, a score prediction, feel free to comment in the comment section below. All right, talk about LSU. I know there are a lot of questions as well this week, too, about the quarterback position. I know that's also being brought up by LSU. And Frank Wilson. Frank Wilson was asked about who the head coach is moving forward. I mean, not the head coach, the quarterback position moving forward for LSU. And that was definitely a thing to be talked about. Now, Frank Wilson made it clear, obviously clear, absolute clear, that Garrett Nussmeier is going to be the quarterback moving forward for LSU, that he is a starting quarterback moving forward. But they will incorporate Michael Van Buren a little bit more. So what does that mean? That means maybe some packages, maybe some situations he's in the game to run the football, maybe a lot of RPOs, a lot of zone read stuff to try to help the running game a little bit more, especially when you have a running back-minded head football coach, you have a run game coordinator as your offensive coordinator. You're going to have more emphasis in running the football, and maybe you can't completely change the entire offense, but what you can do is kind of sprinkle some stuff in and change some things. You can't just change the entire mentality of the offense over a bye week with an interim coach and a new offensive coordinator, but you can make some things happen. All right, Melissa, with number 3, Texas A&M up next after this week, we'll show players still give it their all. Well, Texas A&M, that LSU just played Texas A&M. That was a whole game where, uh, yeah, Brian Kelly lost his job. That was kind of like the last breath for LSU for the Brian Kelly era. If LSU were to win that game at home against Texas A&M, Brian Kelly would still be your coach right now. So that game was close in the first half. LSU was actually winning that game in the first half going to halftime, and then it all unglued in the second half and all fell apart. And obviously, you're in the position that you are in right now. So the thing is, right now for LSU, what you've noticed is that LSU hasn't completely thrown in the towel just yet, because look at the program right now. There are no players entering the transfer portal right now. So Frank Wilson did admit that. He said there's after the firing of Brian Kelly, they haven't had any players enter the transfer portal or leave or quit or do anything like that. So you still have your whole team intact right now. You actually gained a commitment right now from your signing class, which was pretty crazy in its own right. But you actually gained a commitment in your signing class, and you did not lose any commitments. So Frank Wilson's doing a really good job of making sure that the ship is still afloat and that he hasn't completely lost the program, and he's done a great job of doing that. But yeah, it kind of depends what happens this week, right, Melissa? So I mean, you have 3 losses. It's for all purposes aside. I mean, any chance of making the college football playoff, even if you go on a run here, even if you go 9-3, and you beat Alabama, you beat Oklahoma. I mean, you can probably be in the conversation a little bit at 9-3, but I'm not sure how much of a shot you really have at making the playoff. Well, I mean, let's just say the perfect scenario, right? You go and win out. You beat Alabama. You beat Arkansas. You beat Western Kentucky. You beat Oklahoma. I mean, those are 2 impressive wins of that stretch when you beat Alabama and you beat Oklahoma. And depending on how those games go, maybe that gets you back in the conversation. But I think if you win here, it would mean a lot for LSU to really conclude the season on a high note. If you lose bad again, if it's ugly again, if it's kind of similar way to Texas A&M, like the team just falls apart, second half, I mean, you could pretty much lose the team. And I think the only reason maybe the team is still afloat right now could be maybe just a change of scenery, a new head football coach, a new change of pace, and a new coach and a new voice to listen to. And I'm not sure Brian Kelly just lost the team, lost the entire program, and really to save it was to bring in the interim head football coach and just kind of start all over and go in that trajectory, right? But yeah, I mean, you're coming off. I'm curious how they approach it, right? This is the second time this year where LSU had to enter the bye week, right? Because remember what kind of put everything apart or started kind of the process, right, was LSU losing to Ole Miss on the road. That kind of started a lot of things, and LSU had to bite on that loss for 2 weeks because you had the whole bye week, and then you had the bye week, and then you had the game against South Carolina. So now similar situation here. So for LSU, how did they react? You go and after that game against Ole Miss, you do bounce back and you play South Carolina, win that football game, but it's going downhill after that. So we'll see how they play. Will they play up? I certainly think they will play up if you are LSU, and I think they'll be motivated to play after losing that game against Texas A&M and after having to dwell on that loss for an extra week. Melissa, last question. How's Mr. Andy and family? I appreciate you, Melissa, for asking that question. And I just want to let everybody know at Gridiron Football that Andy is doing well. He is back home. He's recovering from back surgery. So it was some of the stuff that happened after the back surgery, but he is doing great. He was doing some spinal fluid, and that's what kind of set him back. But he is doing really good. He's out the hospital. He's actually back at home, probably right now playing video games. To be honest with you, laying back, relaxing. And he said that if you missed the post, he did say that he was coming back 100 miles per hour. Say, hey, not too fast. Don't come up too fast because we want you to rest. We want you to relax. And he's doing that right now. And hopefully, with more, if Andy's watching and listening to this, hopefully more relaxing, more laying back, and then next week we can bring him back. So that is hopefully the goal. That's hopefully the key, especially when we got our Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game coming up around the corner in late December. So obviously, we want him back sooner rather than later, but we are not going to push him whenever he's ready and whenever he's feeling back to his normal self. We will have him back, but he's just relaxing, recovering right now. And but I appreciate the question. Andy's doing fine. His family's doing fine, and I really appreciate you asking the question. So I really appreciate you, Melissa. There, thank you for your comments and your interaction with the show. I'll be on here for the next 15 minutes talking about LSU football, and then I'm going to have to skedaddle after that. But if you have any questions, you have any general statements about LSU, please feel free to comment in the comment section. We'll have an article, a pregame article about LSU in Alabama that'll be posted on our website at gridironfootballusa.com. Pretty much by tomorrow, I'm expecting for that to be out. But yeah, since we got about 15 more minutes, I'm going to wrap up my Alabama talk. I'm not going to have my final score prediction right here or anything, but what I am going to say about the LSU game is there's multiple ways that you can come about it, right? If you're LSU with a new regime, with kind of like a transition, right, potentially for your next head football coach. And considering what LSU fans expected, what everybody with the players expected going to the season, and that was to be a contender for a college football playoff spot. And now you're looking at it, it's early November. They just released the college football playoff rankings, and you're not even in the top 25. So very disappointing how the season's going, but if you're LSU, you can change the narrative, and the narrative can change rather quickly. If you go and you beat Alabama on the road, then this whole conversation changes. And maybe it's LSU's, the players and the coaches, really the whole team over there, that whole program at Baton Rouge, right? They have to believe that they can go and win, right? Obviously, if they don't believe it, they will get crushed. They will get crushed against Alabama. And it won't shock me if Alabama crushes LSU and blows them out. But same time, it also won't shock me if LSU makes a game out of it, makes it close, and puts them in position maybe to even pull off the upset on the road against Alabama. So crazier things have happened, but LSU has to play obviously their best game, but it can go multiple ways, but I do expect LSU to bring forth their best effort. Now, as we wrap up the show, we'll have the post-game or the pregame article on the website. Once again, gridironfootballusa.com. But the next 12 minutes, let's talk about the future of LSU football. Like I mentioned at the very start of the show, LSU's got a new athletic director. They got themselves a new the new interim head coach and Frank Wilson, a new athletic director, Virg Alsbury. So alignment, right? Talked about that at the very beginning of the show. LSU starting to align everything up. As far as if you're a head coach and you're looking at jobs, you want to know who you're reporting to as your boss, right? Every person that wants to get interviewed for a job, they want to know who their boss is, right? Because that's who you're reporting to every single day. But it looks like you got that down pat with an AD and the president. So now you're kind of looking at, okay, all right, who is going to be your head coach? Now, there was an interview yesterday with Virg Alsbury. I think it was on Matt Moscona's show. But Verge was asked about Nick Saban and if Nick Saban was a serious option, right, for LSU's head football coach. And Verge says, well, I talked to Nick a whole lot. You're just kind of paraphrasing, right? I mean, I talked to Nick a whole lot. I talked to him about almost every week. We're really good friends. We've been close. And it turns out, I mean, he does not expect, well, the AD at LSU, that should tell you something, right? This is the guy that's making the eventual hire at LSU for the next head football coach. If he's saying that Nick Saban's not going to be the head football coach and he doesn't expect Nick Saban to come back to coaching, it's probably true. It's probably true that Nick Saban's not going to be back coaching at LSU. It doesn't mean that Nick Saban can have maybe his voice on the matter, on his opinion on the matter. And I'm sure LSU can bring him over to say, hey, they might just interview Nick and say, hey, Nick, who are some guys that you like? Who are some people that we need to talk to? Maybe Nick Saban can point them in a better direction, maybe. But I don't think the criteria is going to be. Let me rephrase it. I think the criteria is going to be different when you talk about the next head football coach coaching search rather than the last one. I think the last one, you want to grab the biggest name, right? You want to get that the big name, right? Big name hunting. That's what Scott Woodward did. You want to get out and get the biggest name, the most accomplished person, right? And what you did was you hired Notre Dame's winningest head football coach ever, and that was Brian Kelly. And you brought him here thinking that this is the most, in terms of resume, this was the most accomplished coach you've ever hired going to LSU in terms of resume. And you offered him the whole bang for his buck. You gave him the whole ship, right? You just handed him everything, the 10-year, $100 million contract. And, obviously that did not work. So I think LSU might be thinking the opposite here after that project did not work and go for the younger head coach, maybe not as experienced from a resume standpoint, but probably as hungry. And I think that's what LSU is going to go after right here, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be the younger name. They may have head coaching experience. A guy like Kenny Dillingham. I like Kenny Dillingham a lot from Arizona State. I can see him as a guy that LSU wants to hire. Maybe a Brent Key from Georgia Tech. Maybe a Clark Lee from Vanderbilt. Maybe guys like that, right, that are proven. Alex Golish maybe from South Florida. And maybe if I'm LSU, maybe kind of think outside the box. Maybe you look at what Georgia did. What did Georgia do? Well, Alabama's winning a lot of national championships with Nick Saban. Who do we think we should go after? Well, he's not a head coach, but let's give Kirby Smart a shot, as head coach. And I know Kirby played at Georgia, but he wasn't exactly a head football coach when he took the Georgia job. That was his first major head coaching gig. He was the Alabama defensive coordinator, and you brought him over to be your head coach of Georgia, and obviously that's worked. That's panned out. I mean, back-to-back national championships, multiple SEC championships, and right now Georgia is in the mix for that college football playoff and another SEC championship again. Do you kind of go off that same formula? Do you hire a guy like Glenn Schumann, who is the defensive coordinator at Georgia? Do you give him a shot? I mean, hey, he's been around Kirby Smart. He knows what it's like to be a part of a championship program. Let's kind of take one from the playbook of Nick, right? Nick Saban, we hired his defensive coordinator, Kirby Smart. If you're LSU, let's hire who's the baddest man in college football right now. It's Kirby Smart. Let's grab his defensive coordinator and bring him aboard. Glenn Schumann is one name, but what about a guy like Joe Brady, obviously, Kelvin Shepherd. Kelvin Shepherd will be a great name too. Now he has never been a college head football coach, but he's played at LSU. He knows what the culture is like at LSU, and he also knows what it's like to win, be a player at LSU, knows that culture, and I think he can bring that tough, hard-nosed physicality back to LSU. Now, another thing is he's also only in his first year as the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. So that's another thing, too, if you have to kind of look at it that way as well. So it is a little bit of a risk, but I think it's a high risk, high reward type of thing. When you think of Kelvin Shepard, when you think of Glenn Schumann, when you think of Joe Brady, guys like that are young coordinators that have done a great job at their schools and are ready to take that next step, being a head coach. But after all, you're eventually going to have to make that move, whether it's LSU or somebody else. You're going to have to give them that chance. I mean, Kirby Smart, it wasn't a head coach before taking the Georgia job. Dan Lanning was a defensive coordinator for Kirby Smart, and you see how that's worked at Oregon. Hey, maybe LSU maybe try to do the same thing with Glenn Schumann. I mean, that could be a name to kind of throw out right there. But another thing that makes it kind of difficult is you're competing with multiple different coaches, right? We get multiple different schools. I mean, you got Florida. You got 4 SEC schools involved right now. You got LSU, you got Florida, you got Arkansas, and you got Auburn. You got to compete with the SEC. That's not including Penn State. That's not including some UCLA, some of the other ones, right? It's not including them either. So a lot of question marks was going on in Baton Rouge. A lot of different guys it could be. Obviously, LSU is going to try to go after the bigger names. So, I mean, Dan Lanning said that he showed that he's not interested in the job. But Lane Kiffin, I still think LSU is going to try their best to throw out and try to get Lane Kiffin to Baton Rouge. But, hey, if it doesn't work, what's your backup plan? And I think that's going to be the biggest question when it comes to this LSU football coaching search. So, yeah, very interesting stuff. It's been a tumultuous couple weeks for LSU when we talk about not only Alabama this week, but who the head coach is going to be. I mean, that's something in itself as well. Who the head coach is going to be, and just everything that's going around the university. It's interesting times in Baton Rouge, I gotta say, for sure. So very curious to see how LSU plays on Saturday against Alabama. But you can check out all of our coverage, guys, at gridironfootballusa.com. That's where you can find all our stuff, not only the LSU content, our high school content, all of our football content. You can find it at gridironfootballusa.com. We got a lot of great shows throughout all of our social media platforms and on everything. Wednesdays and then Sunday morning, we'll have a reaction to the LSU game as well. We'll have that. We'll go live on Sunday morning. And then in terms of our high school stuff as well, high school coverage, we'll have our Ball in the Boot show on Friday night at 10:30. But on Monday, we'll also premiere our Road to the Dome preview. We'll talk every single week about the high school football state championships, the playoffs, the Road to the Dome for Louisiana high school football. So that'll be on Monday. So Ball in the Boot will have 2 episodes a week on Friday and Monday. And then we'll have our Going Bowling show. That's everything about our Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game. That will be posted as well on Tuesdays on YouTube, X, and Facebook. On Thursday, we have our Player of the Week show, so that will be actually tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll have our Player of the Week show for high school football. We'll announce our Player of the Week, who wins our Player of the Week every Thursday at 5 o'clock. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for watching and spending some time with me today. Hopefully y'all have a great rest of your week. We'll catch up with all of y'all again on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Wherever you're watching, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe to us as well. We'll catch up with you to see how the LSU Alabama game did. What was Frank Wilson's first test? Did he pass his first test as the interim head football coach at LSU? And we'll see how much how serious of a candidate he is, depending on how the game goes on Saturday against the Crimson Tide. I mean, you want to be the head coach at LSU. This is a great opportunity to showcase that you can be the next head football coach at LSU. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. We'll see y'all next time, next Wednesday, but we'll see y'all on Sunday for a post-game edition of the Chase with Jace. Have yourself a good rest of your evening, everybody.